Hi, everyone. I'm Shannon, one of the co-organizers of the group. Thanks, everyone, for being here with us for the launch of our 2020 voter guide. Before we get started, a few notes. We'll have some time for questions later in the meeting. So until we get to that section, we request folks keep themselves muted. Feel free to pop questions into the chat as we go along, and we'll make sure to get to them, either during the meeting or in follow-up materials. Okay, so just quickly, we're just going to do some quick updates and then we'll get into the meat of the meeting. So before we get to the main event, I just wanted to run through a few quick group updates. So here's a reminder of the different focus areas that our group currently works on: Seattle, King County, and Washington State. Then here's an updated timeline of where we're at. So Seattle represented in red up here. The drive to divest from Seattle Police Department and reinvest in community-driven public safety solutions continues. On September 22nd, there was a historic override of the mayor's veto of City Council's 2020 rebalancing budget. While actual cuts to the police budget and investment in the community were modest, the vote was important in that enough council members remained firm in their commitment to community and set the tone for the 2021 budget talks, which are currently happening. So thank you to everyone who emailed, called, testified, all the things in support of the veto override. The last minute convincing of swing votes was definitely 100% due to community pressure. So we need to carry that momentum forward so that Seattle can pave the way for other communities around the country to follow suit. Then blue is representing King County. So we are still working on voter engagement on this set of charter amendments that you're going to hear much more about in detail shortly. And then Washington is represented in purple. So again, we're going to hear about our pre-election candidate engagement and voter engagement shortly. But I do want to note that the work in preparation of the 2021 legislative session starting in January is already in the works. So our primary goal is finding support from our legislators for meaningful collective bargaining reform. So we've begun having constituent meetings with key legislators to try to raise awareness. Okay, so now the voter guide. So I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who contributed hundreds of hours of volunteer time to get this guide to where it is. It's been humbling and impressive and fun to see this team pull together and accomplish so much in a very short time. I'm not going to try to individually name everyone who helped, as I'm going to inevitably forget someone, but you know who you are. But that being said, I do want to highlight a few contributors. In terms of the content for the voter guide, Vicki led the candidate research team. Lisa led the issues and educational materials team. Vicki, Ty, and Mary helped me with candidate engagement via our questionnaire. The King County Committee, Nancy, Kate B, Eliza, and Bailey did a great job on the charter amendments. And then, yeah, in terms of having quality content, it's great, but you also want to make it accessible. So on the website side, I just really thank Jess and Kate F for taking all our content and making it understandable. And then for everybody who jumped in this last week to help with all the tiny details at our work parties: Kelsey S, Angela, Camille, Jess, Kate F, Elizabeth, Vicki, and our youngest contributor, Abby, who totally ruled quality control. I just, yeah, can't thank you enough. So, whew, okay, so I feel like I just won an Oscar for civil liberties or something. So let's see the voter guide. Let me find that one. Okay, and then we will show you the link when that is ready. Okay, so this is the homepage for our voter guide. I mean, so the basic crux of it is that, I mean, the last few months, we've just seen this robust national discussion on police accountability and reform. And so we were realizing that there's a bunch of things that are appearing on our November ballot locally that can make a big difference, but those down ballot races are maybe not what people are paying the most attention to this year. There's so much going on the national level. So what we were hoping to do was empower voters with a nonpartisan resource so that they could try to understand how to vote for their values through a lens of police reform. So how to use our voter guide, there's a couple of sections. There's the King County Charter Amendments. And so to learn more about that, I am going to pass that over to the King County Committee team. So whenever you're ready.
Are we jumping right in with sharing them? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, let me get the screen up.
And the slides that we made are also all inside the voter guide, so you can relax and know you can find them later.
Yeah, and we'll be following up with all the materials, a link to the recording, a link to the website, all that. So don't stress out.
All right, does everybody see the screen?
Yep, looks great.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we are sharing information about 4 specific charter amendments that are on the King County ballot this November that connect to police accountability. So currently in King County and across the country, there is momentum to reimagine what public safety looks like and feels like for all residents.
However, the King County Charter has several legislative barriers that prevent our elected officials from acting to make meaningful change. There are 4 amendments that are on the ballot in November that remove some of these barriers so that our council can act in the public interest and serve all of their constituents fairly.
Without these amendments, structural change is very difficult, and the public has limited power to advocate for reform and accountability. The King County Charter is basically our constitution. It sets out what the county can do and can't do. So what's in the charter is important. And every 10 years, there's a citizen commission that reviews the charter to make suggested updates. And that's where most of these amendments, but not all, came from. So the first amendment to the charter concerns inquests. Inquests are formal fact-finding processes that look into the cause and circumstances of deaths which occur involving law enforcement. No judgment on liability or fault is made in the process of an inquest. Currently, the law is unclear about which deaths involving law enforcement require an inquest. During the inquest process, county-funded legal representation is provided to law enforcement officers, but not to the families of individuals who have died in their care. A 2018 ordinance does provide such representation, but it's not the same weight as the charter. So this amendment would make it a right under the charter. What it does. This amendment clarifies that an inquest is required when an action, decision, or possible failure to offer appropriate care by a member of a law enforcement agency might have contributed to a person's death. And it specifies that law enforcement agency, for the purpose of this section, includes local or state agencies. So local police departments, the Seattle Police, for example, are covered. But it also covers corrections facilities and jails. And then it secondly provides the option of a public defender for the family of the person who has died. It also defines who family is. And why do we need it? Well, to build public trust by ensuring that the families, the public, and law enforcement are served by the inquest process so that they can understand and count on it. Inquests can't repair the damage that's done by a death, but they do give answers about what happened and some information to the family. And they can also identify areas for improvement of the law enforcement agency. The process has had many issues, and as a result, the King County Executive revised procedures for inquests in 2018. But cities opposed these changes, and they filed a lawsuit that's still pending. 19 deaths where inquests have been ordered are still pending because of the lawsuit. And those deaths include Tommy Lay, Isaiah Obet, Damaris Butts, Eugene Nelson, and Charlene Wiles. The Charter Amendment won't resolve all the issues, but it will help. So vote yes in November, or October for that matter. We're voting early, right?
Absolutely. So Charter Amendment 1, the inquest amendment that we just looked at, applies to all policing that happens within King County. But the next 3 amendments that we're going to talk about are specifically impacting the King County Sheriff's Office. So we want to take just a moment to kind of anchor us in who the sheriff is directly policing. So unincorporated King County and several contract cities and agencies are the folks in our area that are directly policed by the sheriff. The other cities in King County have their own police departments. So if you look at population, 75% of the population of King County has their own police departments in their particular cities. The unincorporated population is about 11%, and the cities that contract total up to about 14%. So 25% of King County folks are the ones that are directly policed by the sheriff. And if you want to look at the details of which cities and agencies, those are listed here to the right. We wanted to kind of name that because it's an interesting thing to be voting as an entire for things that are really significantly impacting only 25% of the population. The first charter amendment that is dealing with the sheriff's office is part of the Office of Law Enforcement Oversight, which we call OLEO, O-L-E-O. And it's to give them subpoena authority. Currently, the sheriff's office can refuse to share information with the Office of Law Enforcement Oversight, who's our King County civilian oversight body. This body conducts audits, reviews, and investigations and policy work. They're informed by community engagement and stakeholder partnerships and represent the interests of the public in its efforts to hold the King County Sheriff's Office accountable for providing fair and just police services. So what this amendment does is it gives OLEO the authority to legally require or subpoena the sheriff's office to share documents, witnesses, and other evidence when they're investigating police conduct. Why we need it is because you have to be able to access information to be able to provide effective oversight. And subpoena power is an essential and standard oversight tool to ensure that police can be held accountable for their actions. So we recommend that you vote yes in October. I'm going to take Bailey's adjustment to that.
Okay, so Charter Amendment number 5 will make the King County Sheriff an appointed position. In 1996, the county sheriff became an elected position. It's gone back and forth between appointed and elected over time. The election of this position is inconsistent with the other department heads in King County government who are appointed. What this does is this amendment makes the King County Sheriff an appointed position again. And we believe, while it may seem counterintuitive, that making the sheriff an appointed position is actually more democratic than having them elected based on representation. And what we shared in the pie chart a few minutes ago, that the sheriff's office provides direct policing to unincorporated areas and contract cities and agencies, which make up only 25% of King County voters. So appointment gives those who are most impacted by the sheriff a greater voice through their elected council members and the executive, because 7 of the 9 council members have constituents in areas that are actually policed by the sheriff. Appointment of the sheriff also opens up the applicant pool to qualified people outside of King County. Currently, candidates for sheriff have to live and vote in King County. And since the position has become elected, the only people who have chosen to run have been from within the sheriff's office. So if we want meaningful change, it will help to be able to recruit people from outside the department or the county or even outside the state. This also opens up the position to people who are qualified but would not choose to go through a campaign. In my personal experience encouraging people to run for office, I find about 2/3 who are definitely qualified, but simply unwilling to go through the gauntlet of a campaign. So also elections can tend to politicize the position and can cause internal strife when they're contested. And an appointed sheriff is easier to hold accountable between elections. So rather than having to hold a recall election or wait until the next election, which could be years away, if there are issues with the sheriff, the council and executive can make more timely changes to respond. So our advice is to vote yes on amendment number 5 as soon as you get your ballot.
So Charter Amendment number 6 ties in really closely with number 5, has to do with structure and duties of the Department of Public Safety. this is the only amendment that didn't come through the Charter Commission, but it still went through all of the meetings for it. Currently, King County charter language blocks the council from being able to make any changes to how policing services are delivered to King County. And it also has the sheriff negotiating with their own guild on behalf of public safety. What this amendment does, it allows the King County Council to modify the duties of the King County Sheriff's Office or merge it with another county department if appropriate. What that means is that we can create a more diverse toolkit of public safety response options so that we can have like mental health support teams respond to people experiencing a mental health crisis. We can have rapid response social workers respond to people in need. We can have mentors, violence interrupters responding to our youth. And we can have unarmed code enforcement professionals respond to like noise complaints and traffic infractions. The other thing that this amendment does is it calls for the King County Executive to negotiate contractors with the Officers Guild instead of the sheriff. Because currently the executive is responsible only for negotiations of the fiscal items, and the sheriff is responsible for negotiating everything else like the workplace conditions. That also includes things like the civilian oversight rules and use of force standards, which are considered the workplace conditions and they're subject to collective bargaining. So currently we have a situation where the police union negotiates with the police officer, that's the sheriff, for civilian oversight provisions and use of force standards. So why we need this amendment? It prevents the conflict of interest created by the sheriff negotiating with their own union. And it also ties the duties of the sheriff to county ordinance that the council can modify in response to public demands for police reform. So if we want to reimagine how we deliver police services in order to better deliver justice to ensure everyone in our community feels safe, we might want to have some of the duties performed by people other than armed commissioned sheriff's deputies. And we may want to consider making changes about that so that our human service agencies can take on some of those responsibilities instead of armed officers. So this amendment will remove the current language in the charter that's blocking these changes that so many people are asking for. So your action is to vote yes very shortly, like in like a week, right? Less than a week. It's so soon. Okay. So besides just voting yes on these 4 amendments, another thing you can do is share about them because they are not commonly talked about or understood, and some of them are a little bit counterintuitive. So we've teamed up with the League of Women Voters, and we're having a town hall on Zoom this Thursday at 7 p.m. We're going to have 3 of our King County Council members there from District 1, 2, and 4. And both Dembowski and Zahalai are some of the sponsors of these amendments as well. We're also going to have at this town hall Sonia Joseph, who is actually, she's the mother of Giovanni Joseph McDade, who was killed by a police officer in 2017. And she went through the inquest process without having representation and has been a really instrumental person behind amendment number 1. So she's going to be a really important person to be able to hear from directly. So yeah, this is, so you can register and invite your King County neighbors, and we can throw the Zoom link up in the chat as well.
Yeah, I think the People Power Map event is being shared in chat, and we'll also share that out afterwards. So I think we have a couple minutes available for questions about these charter amendments. I think I saw one in chat that was asking about who would be doing the appointing of the sheriff. So would one of you want to speak to that?
Yeah, that would be the King County Executive with approval or confirmation from the King County Council. So it would be elected people that we've chosen selecting.
Okay, and wasn't there some kind of community stakeholder part of the process as well?
Yeah, they're going to have some community stakeholders involved in that process. And one of the pieces that I've just personally found is that in this King County group, as we've been getting a hold of people, I think everyone has had the experience of our council members being tremendously accessible. And so since that unincorporated 11% and the 14% of if you live in a charter city or you're just dealing with some of those agencies, it's just so much more accessible to be able to advocate for the changes that you want through council members instead of just one person in the sheriff's office.
Cool. Anybody else have a question about charter amendments? Now's your chance. This team is the expert on charter amendments at this point.
I have a question about the amendment pertaining to inquests. It was mentioned on the slide that public defenders would be made available to the family or to the family. Was that just what I worry about is I guess we don't have enough public defenders to defend people who need legal defense in criminal cases. And so I was wondering if it's actually like a public defender. I was worried that this charter amendment might lead to, more work for an already overly taxed public defense system. I don't know. Is that a concern, or am I just?
Well, when they address, I don't think it is, because when they addressed the possible fiscal impact, they said the benefits outweighed the cost. And I'm not aware of there being too few public defenders, although I'm a former public defender. I'll accept that. 8 years with the Defender Association back in the day. But we were always fighting for lower caseloads, of course, but I believe that they're ready to gear up for that and handle it. So I don't think it'll be a big problem, given the county's commitment to do this right, basically, for the families.
I'm also not sure if it actually provides an additional public defender because there's already a public defender in the process. It's allowing them to advise the family. So
The same person who's advising the law enforcement would be advising the family as well?
No. It's a separate attorney.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a separate office as well. Because otherwise you have a conflict of interest and you can't do that. Yeah.
Okay, and then one more in the chat. Do any of the amendments have words about how the funding happens for the operations therein? I don't know, is that fiscal statement or?
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering, even if they pass, if it's, where the funding, that's my question. Is it the same as a police in general gets some, and it needs to be dictated by the council or the county council or whatever?
Are you referring to the inquest amendment or?
Sure, because any or all, none of them, because that seems like something my parents would ask, I guess, is maybe why it's a question.
We'll be voting on the budget pretty shortly. I don't know what their timeline is this year, but they normally have a budget passed before Thanksgiving, and they're working on it now, I know. So yeah, they'll be the ones deciding, and some of the costs are already being borne, like trying to operate the inquest is already borne by my old department. When I wasn't a public defender, I was a county bureaucrat, and the department I used to belong to is currently handling that, so it's already incorporated. I don't know that this has significant fiscal impact, but I know that the changes, because they're incremental, and putting in place things that are already kind of there already. So yeah, it'll be up to the county council during the budget process.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but the portions that are talking about being able to change the duties of the sheriff's office, that would allow where funding would have the potential to go. And so if we're looking at thinking about how we can get funding shifted away from policing towards other support services, that amendment is necessary to be able to even begin to change things.
That's how I read it too, Kate.
Yeah, I think my impression is these amendments, they don't actually structurally change anything yet. They just set the conditions up such that we could change things. So, I think all the details about what happens or how it gets paid for or whatnot won't be part of what happens coming out of these amendments, but things that the county council could do because of the amendments, then they would then sort that all out later. And, that would all go through public hearings and all of that to get people's input.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to explain it, Shannon.
Cool. So let's move on to the other part of the voter guide, which is affecting the entire state. So the entire state house and half of the state senate are up for election this November. And so whoever we vote to send to Olympia in January 2021 are going to convene for a few short months and have the opportunity to pass new state laws. So, our hope as police accountability advocates is that a lot of the important issues that we've been learning about these past months could eventually become state law. It seems like there's a lot of momentum to be doing that right now. So that's why it's important for us to get people to vote for their state legislature candidates. And we're hoping that with this resource that they can tell which candidates are more likely to be in line with their views. So just to walk you through what this part of the voter guide was, our methodology was we created a candidate questionnaire, which we sent out to all the candidates in early September. We reminded them a couple times to return them and then, provide them for viewing on the website. If a candidate did not complete the questionnaire, there's an opportunity for you to contact them and request that they participate. In addition, we had volunteers do research using publicly available information from Ballotpedia, VoteSmart, the Public Disclosure Commission, candidate websites, Googling, whatever. And so we're hoping that, this can help voters to see what initial research on their candidates look like and give them a better idea of who they are, and then figure out what they need to look further into about matters that are important to them. Cool. So the way we've set this up is that, some of the issues that were on the candidate questionnaire or that you might be wondering about when considering a candidate in terms of policing are qualified immunity, independent investigations, collective bargaining, decertification, de-escalation, demilitarization. So we created some educational resources to try to better understand what these mean and what you would want to hear a candidate say in regards to it. So for example, here's the page about qualified immunity. We've just compiled resources and tried to, kind of break it down into what is this issue. And so we've done that with many of those. And then, then next it's figuring out, okay, well, where does your candidate actually stand? So on the candidate page, so all of these you can access up here in this drop-down menu. This is that home page. This is where you go to learn about those charter amendments we just heard about. This is the issue page. And then this is where we are at, the candidate page. So first up, if you don't know what legislative district you're in, this is a handy link to let you look it up using your address. And then once you do know your legislative district, it would be a number between 1 and 49. Then you can go down and find your district. So for example, I live in District 36. And I see, okay, so up for election in House Position 1 is Noelle Frame. It looks like she's running uncontested. She didn't complete our questionnaire, but maybe that's okay because I don't really have a choice, but I can learn more about her if I want, looking at the research. But then, looking further down, the race that I'm very much interested in, still undecided in, is for the seat that Gail Tarleton left empty, since she is running for Secretary of State. And so the contenders in this race are Liz Berry and Sarah Reinfeld, and happily, both of them did complete our questionnaire. So I will probably, before I decide, go through and read the detailed information that they wrote to let me know where they stand. Sarah Reinfeld similarly wrote pages of material for me to sift through, so I've got my homework cut out for me. Then we also have candidate research on both of them. We have links to their candidate websites to make it very easy to find out where they stand and maybe on issues that you care about besides policing. And then, yeah, we've just, from the yes, no questions at the top of the questionnaire, tried to make it simple so that you can see a scorecard. Based on this, I don't know which candidate to vote for based on this, which is why I'm going to have to read their questionnaires in more detail. Does anybody have a legislative district they want to throw in chat, and we can look at that page?
"32."
32. All right, let's see. So let's go back to here. 32. Okay, so you have up in House Position 1, Cindy versus Shirley. It looks like Cindy hasn't completed our questionnaire. So if you want, you can click this. It will pop up a pre-populated email. So you can email Cindy and let her know that you care very much about police accountability. You're trying to decide who you're voting for. And it would be great if she would fill out our questionnaire and return it to us so that we can know where she stands. But if you want to learn about Shirley, here is her questionnaire all filled out. We have a scorecard, which currently is blank for Cindy. If Cindy does send it back, we will update this. Let's see, House Position 2. Looks like neither Lauren or Tamara filled it out. So let's see if we did any research for them. We did, so you could learn more about your candidates that way. Or you can look at their website, and it looks like, yeah, the Senate seat in the 32nd is not up for election. Okay, let's see. Somebody else wanted to see 46. So yeah, we tried to focus on definitely filling out the research sheets for candidates who are kind of near where we as volunteers live, and then also kind of targeting other races. But I would say we got about 30% of the candidate research done. And, there was, I think, 220 some candidates. So it was a lot. And about 15% of candidates returned their questionnaires. So House Position 1, Jerry has filled out his questionnaire, whereas Eric has not. House Position 2, similarly, Javier has filled it out, but Beth has not. And yeah, so hopefully this is a useful resource and you can all play around with it. We'll send you the link. Basically, it is wethepeoplepower.org. And then, you'll end up at a homepage, and the voter guide link is up here or right here. Okay, cool. So that is the voter guide. So now we have done tons of work to put this voter guide together. So what we are hoping is to get all of your help in trying to spread the word about it to people hopefully this is a helpful resource, and we're trying to promote it as widely as possible so that people will fill out their ballots thinking about police accountability. So we're going to go back into our breakout rooms and just do a short brainstorming session about how to do that. And then we'll come back and wrap up. I think everybody is back. Did we have a good time in breakout rooms? Okay, I want to hear some ideas. What did people come up with? Just jump in.
So we want to create a Slack channel for people to, for all of us to come in and be able to talk about ideas and brainstorm, and then also get support if we share with people that are a little bit, maybe we're not sure, and either we have a really good experience or we need some support because we have a bad experience.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Okay, so our existing Slack, we'll create a channel, and then anybody who wants to be in Slack. Okay, so we need to send out the Slack invite link. Yeah, I like that, because then we can also crowdsource things. In my group, we talked about whether there were pre-created social media posts, which I have not done because I was frantically working on the voter guide up until the last minute. But yeah, if that's somebody's forte, which it is not mine, then we could share that in there. Any other ideas?
One of the things that we talked about in our group is sharing it. Well, first of all, potentially creating some graphics that we can use for social media sharing for anybody that has those kind of expertise of a little infographic to include with a link to it. And then posting those both within your own network, but then also if you have a neighborhood Facebook group or other local Facebook groups where you might be able to get some more just information out that it could then be shared from there as well.
I'd like to piggyback on that too, about whether or not we have hashtags that are devoted to what the voter guide is showing about the King County amendments, or because it would be common through all those modes.
Yeah, I think so. For King County, they're calling it Charter for Justice. I'm not sure if it's charter for the number or for the word justice. Probably
I think
either
either
work.
works. I think
Okay.
both work.
Yeah, we have not come up with a hashtag for the voter guide. So if anybody has an idea, we can come up with it right now.
We could just do like ACLU WA voter guide. Is that allowed?
That seems pretty straightforward.
I think we have to be careful about saying ACLU Washington. I think we have to include people power.
Yeah.
Just because there's a difference between us and official ACLU Washington, but
We could do, okay.
I'm seeing.
We could do just people
ACLU.
power WA voter guide, but I don't know if that's too long.
And it's
Okay.
also specific to police reform, right? So it's not just an entire voter's guide.
yeah,
Yeah.
good point.
I like that one.
Vote for police accountable. I like that.
Oh, I like that one. Yeah.
Or
Vote for
People
police
power.
accountability WA. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to have ACLU in it at all, because
Yeah.
in some ways that can be off-putting to people sometimes.
Our group came up with a couple of ideas. One was getting signs made for those who are attending the upcoming Women's March.
Oh yeah, That-
So I think some
that's great.
are going to be there. And then also there was the idea that was on the breakout room list. That's where I put all these notes too, about how people are doing virtual voting parties. And maybe that could be something that we as a group come up with a 30-minute format where we can invite friends to do it, kind of like the watch party that we did previously for the John Oliver one. So just kind of, instead of forcing everybody to come up with their own format, just coming up with something really quick and easy for people to do, maybe on just a one sheet of paper with all the links and everything.
Yeah, like a template.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ty, I am so happy you brought that up, because in my group, we are talking about, so like this People Power event gets posted on the People Power map and it shows up in Seattle because that's the zip code I put in. And then yesterday they text recruited 3,500 people for us to try to come, which maybe some of you came because of that. So, it occurred to me, I was like, oh, well, we have all these meetings now that are virtual, and in terms of hosting events around the state, it's way easier than in the past. So, if people were interested, we could put up events like in Tacoma or in Spokane or in Walla Walla or, Vancouver, just all over. And, if we did have either a template or even, kind of like the watch party thing, like we could make a video that's more about statewide, maybe go into a little more depth about the issues that may be coming up for consideration by the state legislature this January. Maybe that could be a way to do it. So if people would be psyched to do that, we could work on that together. My other thing we discussed in my group was things like posting to existing groups, like indivisible groups around the state. So if people have ins into there, I am on the ACLU People Power Vancouver Facebook group, so I will be posting there. I'm not aware of other active People Power groups around Washington's Facebook groups, but we could look.
Shannon, we put it on. We'll put it
Oh,
on the
period.
one. So quickly you forget.
Sorry. Nancy leads Burien People Power. I am, sorry. And your
she does a
Facebook
great
page.
One thing I would say for the Facebook posts and other social media posts is if anybody, I know like Jess was saying she could do graphics, but if folks have good thoughts about like a phrase that will get people's attention that we can send out to this group, people in general are going to be a lot more likely to post it if it's a copy paste versus having to think of exactly the right way to phrase it. So if there are folks that are interested on doing that, I think that would be a great way to get that out so that people can be sharing the same thing and it's the same kind of messaging with that hashtag as well.
We had also an idea in ours, which I thought was a beautiful coming together of pets on the internet and this, that use your animals and create costumes for them. I was hoping Linda would share it, but and that gets people's attention.
Okay, so you're gonna dress Pickles up as
Or
like,
maybe I'll dress up Pickles and then make a post of him voting.
okay. Oh my gosh, please do that, Nancy.
I'll try.
Pickles
is
is
the
the
gecko.
leopard gecko.
How about Sarah's goat?
Yes, that's right. Sarah has goats.
We could have a contest of who can come up with like the best animal promoting the police accountability voter guide or something. Okay, I'm loving this. So everybody who's signed on, you gave an email address when you logged into Zoom. So we'll get you added to the mailing list that we use to try to organize stuff like this. You can always take yourself back off if you don't want to keep getting emails, or it's a Google group. So you can also set it to, not get every single email sent to you. But yeah, I think we should just keep trying to think of this. We'll set up that Slack channel. If somebody is really excited about doing this social media graphics and things like that, that would be really cool. Okay, I see letters to the editor of blogs. Yeah, the Seattle Times came out in opposition to Charter Amendments 5 and 6. So, I mean, there's potential there if anybody feels like writing a letter to the editor. I know we have not had the best of luck getting things into the Seattle Times, but there's also other publications. And then, yeah, there were some questions earlier, things like, yeah, if you see a glitch when you're going through the voter guide, I mean, it's definitely, I'm sure there's mistakes in it. So if you could email those to wapeoplepower@gmail.com, yeah, let me put that into chat. Then we will compile them together and the people in the back end can try to fix that. Let's see, if any volunteers want to do research on candidates, that would be amazing. You can let me and or Vicky know. Vicky is the amazingest person at candidate research and can get you set up with the template and, kind of where to get started and how to fill that in.
So even though we've stopped, or even though the voter guide is out, we can still work on candidates.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to keep updating it. I'm probably going to send an email out to all the candidates now that it's live to say, hey, here's that thing that we asked you to participate in. And I'm hoping that that will get some more people to respond once they see that their opponent has responded, or maybe not.
Yeah, especially with those the surveys that you sent out. That would be awesome.
Yeah, so we'll do that. We'll do outreach to the candidates to try to get more. But if people were interested in doing more research, we'll definitely put it up there. Let's see. And then are there any other organizers aware of other ACLU people power groups working on police accountability in other states that have similarly created a voter guide? I would say no. But I mean, it might be. I would say that this group is probably pretty unique in that we are this passionate, and honestly, I was telling somebody, if I had known how much work it was to make a voter guide ahead of time, I don't know that I would have done it. But now we're here and it's super happy. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to share this with National People Power and I can ask them, hey, what other state or group can one up this? But I kind of doubt it. I think we're the most awesome.
Shannon, we had an idea about the that you can click and ask the person, that we should actually just ask people to ask, like if their representative or senator hasn't filled it out, like even if they've already made a decision, just ask them to make that part of it, because that would just encourage them more, and then we'd have more information.
To fill out the questionnaire.
Yeah, click that button on that creates the email, because it seems like a super easy ask for people. If you go, like when you're sending it out to your networks, if you if you notice that your representatives haven't filled it out, take a moment to, just actually ask for that instead of hope.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good ask, because like you said, that's an easy thing. We've already written the email for them. We found the email address.
Yeah.
Maybe if they hear it from like 10 of their voters and constituents rather than just me and Mary all the time, then they might take it seriously. But they're also very busy, so I don't know.
No, I was going to say the same thing, and I know we were talking about it a little bit in our group, but it can be discouraging if you look and are like, my candidates haven't filled this out, so this isn't a useful guide to me. But instead thinking of like such an easy way to ask your community to take action. If you look at your district and you're one where it hasn't been done, like people will feel good about asking their candidates for something that's so simple, but could be so impactful.
Yeah, so if there's any language of how you would want to phrase that or, push that out there, I mean, anybody, please share that and we can try to put together some templates of things. So I'm just gonna, just to respect people's time, just some last announcements. So if you're interested in getting more involved, a lot of work happens between these monthly general meetings we have. We have different committees that try to keep the group running. So the upcoming committee meetings, King County is going to meet this coming Tuesday. We've been meeting bi-weekly through the election. I think most of this is we're going to be preparing and getting ready for the town hall that's getting hosted on Thursday. The state legislature committee is going to meet next Sunday. I'm not sure what we're doing yet, but we'll figure it out. And then group organization, which is just kind of behind the scenes, keeping everything going with the group. We need a lot of help there. Meets Wednesday, October 21st from 5 to 6. Let's see, okay, watch out for your ballots this coming week. Most Washington counties are mailing them on Wednesday, October 14th, so that you should get them in your mailbox by Thursday or Friday. Please make sure you, your friends, neighbors, acquaintances, frenemies, everybody you know is registered. You can check your registration status at vote.wa.gov, and then remember to vote and get your ballot back by November 3rd. Then, yeah, as we mentioned earlier, there's this King County Police Academy Town Hall this coming Thursday. It's going to be via Zoom. It'll also be live streamed on YouTube. And yeah, we are co-hosting that with the League of Women Voters, which is fun and exciting. And finally, thank you for coming out and trying to help us brainstorm. So our next general meeting is going to be after the election, Sunday, November 8th. We'll probably do a debrief and try to decompress and then maybe start thinking about what our next steps are. And yeah, like I said, a lot of the work happens outside of the general meeting. So please let us know if you want to jump in and we will loop you in. So thank you. So I will stick around if anybody wants to hang around and ask any questions, but we went a minute early, so we can all hang out for a minute or people can get on with their day. But thank you. And I hope that the guide is useful and that you can send it to other people who might find it useful as well.
Great job.
Thank you.
Good job, everybody.
Yay! Yay, team.